scavenging for supplies with his brother, the Stalker. Here's a look at the NECA Toys Predator 30th Anniversary Predator 2 Ultimate Boar Predator. Slightly older and more aggressive than his brother-in-arms Stalker, Boar is the muscle of the mercenary duo known as the Boar Brothers. Having been forced to flee their tribe as youths, Boar became his brother's protector, and they soon found a home on the planet's secret underworld. Avoiding enforcers as well as bad bloods quickly became routine, and without Boar's combination of courage and rage, the two would have never reached maturity. Born with the talent for physical combat, Boar developed a strong admiration for the hunter-predators, and used their treacherous new surroundings as training ground for him and his Stalker's quest to become hunters themselves. When they weren't scrounging for food or work, Boar would teach his younger brother how to fight using anything available. They often sought to join groups of hunters passing through, but were ignored due to their young age and inexperience. It wasn't until they were caught stealing from Elder Predator that they accidentally earned their way into the tribe. Boar and Stalker would often go and prove their worth to Elder Greyback and Lost Tribe, establishing themselves as hunters and eventually becoming a force of their own. Just before this mercenary brings the muscle, let's grab first the tape measure and see how tall Boar Predator stands, and then of course we'll bring a couple of figures for comparisons. Boar Predator to the top of the helmet is a figure that stands 8 inches in height, or the figure is going to be 20.5 centimeters tall. Ideally, I would have wanted to bring in Stalker Predator, of course being the brother of Boar. Unfortunately, at the time of doing this review, I had moved around some of my collection, and some of the Predators right now, its whereabouts remain unknown. I probably had put them in just temporary totes with the plan to kind of put them back out when I figured out what I wanted to do with my display. Needless to say, ... I don't have the figure right now to compare it along with Boar, but I certainly would encourage you guys, if you get the chance, go back and check out that earlier review I did do of Stalker Predator. Hopefully you guys will enjoy it. A figure, though, I felt would also be fitting to bring in for comparisons would also be Elder Predator. Not only obviously for the connection that he has to Boar, but also one correction I did want to make to his review, something that I did know I had to do in the review and failed to actually point it out, is the fact that this helmet did have light-up eyes. We can light them up right now. I did, like, in preparation to the review, already have everything laid out. I took the little battery restriction tab out in order to light the eyes up, and then just unfortunately I guess the review got away from me and I never got the chance to really show those off. We can also rectify that of course in this review, so just pop those back into place. You have to kind of line the tabs up here, the little peg points here, pop that back into place. And now of course once that's now in place, let's go ahead and put Elder Predator rightfully where he belongs along with Boar. Other comparisons we can also bring in as well is Snake Predator, simply just because, again, like the ones booked end on either side are ones we've just recently looked at here on this channel, and thought, again, it would be a good idea way to show you guys that while they are using, yes, still the same bodies again and again, there's definitely a lot of changes made, not only to the additional sculpting, but some additional retooling as well. A question I always tend to get a lot from you guys is, what's your favorite Predator? Obviously, we've looked at so many here on this channel. I think I pretty much covered all the Predator figures that NECA Toys have released over the years. Still, though, one of my favorites by far is Lost Predator. And never really getting the chance to bring him in and getting him a chance to shine. I did want to bring him in at least for this comparison to show you again, like he is using, sure, the same body as Boar, but a lot of different changes have been made with the figures. As for the accessories that come include with Boar, you get a lot of the same stuff that you usually recognize right away, and then there's other things that you get that are slightly tweaked from normal. The thing that is slightly tweaked from normal is his plasma caster shoulder-mounted cannon. One thing that's very different about the design of this is it sort of has almost an organic design to it, the way that they've actually sculpted in. Like even like the cannon itself, when you're looking at it, almost has sort of an insectoid sort of design to it. The neat thing also about this one is it's one of the few that actually tuck into itself, as when you're ready to use it, you simply just flip this up and then spin the cannon around. I think that's a really cool touch. Now, obviously, this will attach, even though the design is a little bit different than norms, this will still attach the back of the Predator's design still the same way. Just simply move, of course, the dreads out of the way, and then from there, you're going to find, like, this little section right here, and then that simply just clips into place. This one I don't think clips as well as perhaps other plasma casters. A lot of it, again, has to do with the fact that sometimes the hair just gets in the way of things, but it does plug into place. The color isn't quite as right as maybe the rest of the torso armor around it. The armor clearly seems to be a little bit darker than the plasma caster he's wearing, but yet still you can bring the cannon around, and providing, of course, you don't knock everything over, it's a nice way, of course, to display the figure. As certainly I mentioned also point is the fact that even though the plasma caster doesn't really necessarily match the coloring of his armor, it does, though, in fact, match the coloring that he has for the helmet. So he's matching colors at least there. The figure also comes included, while he's got that in place, he comes with two variations of combi stick. One is a fully retracted version, one is, of course, a fully extended version, and making use of some really nice metallic copper paints. Of course, the retracted version simply just has all of this just folded in, but the handle pretty much stays the same. There is no place on the Predator where you can store it. Sometimes it's usually the case where there may be a clip on the back of the figure's body where you could then take the combi stick, retract it, and fit that onto the back, but there is no clip presently available on this Predator this time around. The figure, though, still comes included with another thing that usually is recognized right away with a Predator. Comes with a smart disc. Scratch that. The figure comes with two smart discs. One, again, is the more folded up melee weapon. One is, again, the more extended. I guess this would be the melee weapon. This would be the throwing disc version of that. Flip this around, you can see, while it still is using kind of a dark gunmetal gray. The one that's extended does have noticeably a darker shade of that gunmetal silver than the lighter one that we get next to it. While this one can be held in his hand, and for all intents and purposes, this one could also be held in his hand, you can also then pick up the Predator and look to the little wizard sleeve that he has onto the side and just sort of tuck that in there. It doesn't always admittingly sit well in place. You sort of have to tuck it up and then kind of push it down. And then he has the means to store the smart disc that way. Obviously, always the case, too. You can also take the Predator's fingers, line them up as best you can usually get these, and then you can also attach them in place. That may not necessarily be the best hand for the job, but he does also have, again, a suitable hand for holding the smart disc. Again, you just sort of line the fingers up, and you can hold the smart disc that way, probably a little bit better than what I'm doing right now. Speaking while we're on the topic of hands, the figure does also have a couple of swappable options. Let's just slide the Predator back here for one moment. The figure comes included with what I could gather to be the smart disc holding hand. He also has one that's slightly more designed for holding the combi stick. And then the figure also comes with a slight variation of that as well. Now, you can also take the smart disc and hold it in his hand this way, too. Almost like he's throwing it like a frisbee. Changing out the hands, always super easy to do with these Predator figures. I know we don't really tend to do that too often in these reviews, but you're just going to hold on to the forearm and just wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Take the hand and pop it right out of the socket. Then from there, go ahead and find the hand that you want to use and just rinse and repeat the steps, but repeat them backwards. Repeat them in reverse. Pop that back into place, and now you got yourself a Predator with a changed out hand. Hands aside, the figure also comes included with a skull. The skull doesn't have a spinal cord this time around, so you're literally just getting a skull. It kind of looks like an old skull, like he would have had in his collection for a while. I would love at some point, although it would involve much more tooling than what we get right here, that a mouth could eventually be hingeable on these skulls, but still like the detail that they managed to put into these pieces. The figure also comes included, going back to his plasma caster, a blast effect. It starts sort of in a translucent or murkier kind of smoke color plastic here, or kind of a whiter plastic, but then they've gone and painted it a little bit of additional yellow. Simply just take the plasma caster, line it up to, of course, the hole provided, and that just plugs into place. I tend not to display my Predators with that. I mean, if you are one that likes to display, say, dioramas, actions happening on your shelf, then yes, you probably are more prone to probably displaying the figures with things like this. For me, I just tend to display my Predators in museum poses, or I usually just display them with like Combi 6 or smart discs, for example. I'm not one that tends to use the blast effects, but again, I always appreciate the fact that a company like NECA Toys includes them in the first place. The figure also comes included with slightly smaller things that are attached onto his gauntlets. He has these little blasters. What you do is obviously pick up the figure, and don't look to this side. This side, of course, is the control console that he's going to have to look at. Well, it doesn't look like he's setting any self-destruct for right now. Whoosh. On this side, however, though, take this part of the panel and flip this up. And once that's removed, you'll see left behind is a hole. Then simply just take the new part, the part that has, again, like that peg point, and just lock it into place. And just connect it like that. So the figure has that as an option available as well. As we're certainly doing it too, you may also notice that he has a secondary control console on this side too. Now, I may be obviously corrected by saying this, but I think it's one of the few Predators where we actually have a control console readout on both sides of the Predator's figure's body. You know, let me know if I'm incorrect down below in the comment section. So those are the accessories that come include the figure, shy of actually just looking at his interchangeable head sculpt. I didn't want to put this back in place because I didn't obviously not want to lose it. The other thing that the figure comes included with, well, I'm going to, for right now, bear with me, I'm going to remove the plasma caster, simply just because I think it'd be a lot easier to look at the figure if I have that actually removed. Looking, though, at his defaulted head sculpt involves looking then at the helmet. Honestly, though, I will say, I've never really been a big fan of the design of Boar. There's something really off about the way they've sculpted the jaw. And that's not necessarily NECA's fault, but the way they've actually designed Boar. Boar is also very notably for having a very long, elongated forehead, that it looks good from the front, but it always looked a little off to the side. Honestly, though, as I'm saying this, looking at the Predator figure that we get from NECA Toys, it sort of has redeemed some of my interest in liking Boar. It looks really good. For me, at least, and I'm going to be probably including something that would be blasphemy, but it does look a little bit like his design, a little like Chopper Predator. And I feel it also bears a little bit of resemblance to also City Hunter. Obviously, in this case, we get a lot more silver than we do that copper brown. And they have added some additional silver color here to the top that sort of has a gold tint to it. I always thought it also looked very insectoid, the way that you looked at it from the top. It looked like the abdomen of an alien, like an alien insect, for example. Of course, he does have the dreads on the back here, little ringlets of both sort of a copper color and a gold color intermingle with one another. And they're, of course, all made of softer plastic. But if, for example, you did want to change out the head, you have this option available as well. Now, I could probably easily say that this is a head that we've gotten before, and I probably would be right by that. It has likely been used for probably earlier Predators, even predating the one that we're getting here with Boar. But, you know, to be fair, it's still a nice-looking head sculpt. I think for me, when it comes to displaying the Predators, unless it's a really good unmasked head sculpt, kind of like what we got with Elder Predator, I tend to usually display the Predators with helmets. If you wanted to change this out, though, simply just a case of grabbing the body, holding onto the head, of course, and wiggling it off the post. Now, if you're having any tough time to do this, you can also use the hot water trick, or you can also use a hairdryer. I know some people don't tend to like to use hot water when it comes to their figures. If you prefer a hairdryer, though, just run a few passes on top of the plastic, and you'll notice that the plastic tends to soften up, and then you can yank it off right away. That's what the Predator looks like, obviously, with now the unmasked head sculpt. A lot of nice additional reds get added here, a lot of nice browns also as well. It sort of looks like caramel ice cream, caramel ripple ice cream, sort of the way they've patterned the top of the forehead here. It is a nice looking head sculpt though I think for me at least, I probably will default after this review back to the original helmeted head sculpt, feeling I think it's the better of the two. For the rest of the figure's body, while we do get a lot of classic looking Predator design, things that get really radically changed here is the top of the torso. Maybe that's why I was getting a little bit of that Chopper vibe. Spinning this around to the back so you can kind of see all the work that the talented artists and sculptors over at NECA Toys managed to put into this figure. There is a lot of copper colors, not copper, a lot of gunmetal coloring here to the top here. A very dark silver gets making appearance here in the top of the torso. It happens to also make appearances in the gauntlets that he has and also to the fronts here. Now the front shoulders seem to be a little bit more of a brown color than he does have like the darker silver here in the front. He does have a necklace, although the necklace is sort of self-contained by all the armor that they've got over top of the body. One thing at least is when it comes to moving things around on the figure, normally necklaces are always thing I'm worried about are going to be lost on the figure if I'm not too careful. In this case around, like the armor being clearly over top of it, there's no way that that necklace is going to be going anywhere. He does have very little of a skirting down below here. Of course, we've already looked at the fact he does have a section here to the side that holds the smart disc. But all in all, like from this section down, it looks classic looking Predator. Again, bearing some resemblance, I feel color scheme wise, to like City Hunter. For the articulation on the Predator, let's start back with his head sculpt. It does rotate back and forth. It is on a pillar after all, but it does still allow the head to look down. It looks up, and you can also rock it back and forth as well. The Predator's arms don't seem limited, although they are a little tight on mine. You can bring the arms out. Now, this arm actually does have the shoulder pad that's attached to the bicep, not to the shoulder. So when it comes to bringing his arms out, you don't seem to have that limitations that you normally could have had if the shoulder pad was attached up here. Instead, it's actually down here. The figure does have a swivel in his bicep as the norm. Figure does also have a double hinge on his elbow, and his hands rotate all the way around. We've already looked at the fact the figure does have an upper torso ball joint. It doesn't move very much, but it moves enough to know that at least they've done something to it. He does have much more of an articulation point when I noticed here with the lower of his abdomen area. Legs do split out as the norm. You can bring the legs forward and back. There's a swivel at the top of the thigh. Double hinge also in the knee of the Predator, and there's also, of course, the traditional articulation up and down this way, and rocking back and forth in the ankle as well. It's a nice looking Predator. You know, it manages to do the one thing that NECA really is good at doing, sells you on an idea of a character design that you may not love in the first place. For me, I never really liked the design of Boar, but a lot of times I think the problem was that I was seeing images of Boar as pictures, not necessarily as figures. We've gotten a few boars in the past, not only from, I think, NECA, but also we've gotten ones from other companies. And Boar was always never a design I really liked. It was just simply a case that I found it was just too much forehead. Too much forehead. Although, to be fair, I do like the way that NECA Toys has handled this release, and it's a nice-looking head sculpt. Though I do like the one that they've done for the alternate, I might, though, beeline it back, revert back to the one that we did get, the helmeted design that came with the figure when you first took him out of his plastic prison. Generally, the format when it comes to these NECA Predator reviews, you'll always notice at the beginning of my videos, I always tend to start them with the helmets on. Simply, that's just the way that they come out of the packaging. Even though I do spend like the half hour to an hour sometimes just looking at the figure, look through the ins and outs, the things I like about it, the things I don't like about it, so I know a little bit of something what I'm talking about in the actual videos. You'll always notice by the end of these videos, I always have the figures with their helmets off, as it simply is just through the course of the videos. I always like to show you guys what the two different head sculpts is, and Predators usually always have a helmet and a non-helmet version of their heads that by the time obviously we get to final looks and the figure's rotating around on the rotisserie, he usually is showing his face by then. Now this is a nice face on a Predator, though I'm sure I've seen this face before. The coloring may be different, sure, but I'm certain like the mold has been used in times before. It's still a nice looking head sculpt, but I think what's so unique of a head sculpt with the helmeted version of Boar Predator, that's the way I'm going to be displaying the figure when I put it on the shelf. Not only because it kind of goes better, I think, with the rest of the armor that he has. It goes better with the plasma caster that he has. And even though it's not a design of Predator head that I like, it's one of the more recognizable Yautja helmets that we've certainly have gotten. The only exception really when it comes to, and I always say talking about going back and putting the helmets back on the Predators, the only real exception recently has been, in fact, the Elder Predator. I've actually got that figure displayed on the shelf with the helmet off. Now, you probably already think, well, didn't you bring the figure in for comparisons with the helmet on? I did. It was more just to show you guys one overlooked point. I just finished talking about looking at the tops and bottoms of the figure, so I know a little bit of something what I was talking about. Sure enough, with the Elder Predator, an overlooked opportunity on my part to actually show you guys what the eyes do look like lit up. I never got the chance to show you guys in that review. So obviously I did want to bring him in with the helmet on so I could show you guys what the lights looked on when it came to the figure. But what do you guys think of Boar Predator? Nice looking figure overall. And when it comes to displaying a figure like this, could you see yourself displaying him with his face visible, or would you prefer to display your Predators with the helmets on? Or does it actually, it's dictated by which Predator you're having on the shelf? Elder Predator goes without the helmet. Most of my Predators tend to go with helmets on. Once again, if you guys enjoyed this video, I want to hit it with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, I want to stick around for more. Thank you for that, by the way. Make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. And make sure you're also turning on the bell notification. Well, we may wrap up things right now. Really, for NECA reviews. Not NECA reviews as a whole, but certainly NECA Predator reviews. There will, in fact, be still NECA stuff coming your way. So make sure you're coming back to this channel on a regular basis. As always, guys, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.